A sport that bridges generations. Live everywhere. Fight gives you instant access to live pay-per-view and free combat sports programs. Check out our combat sports schedule at fight.tv. Fight. Start watching.
Are you looking for a good fight? Check out the Fight pay-per-view schedule. Watch on the biggest screen in the house. What's the fight tonight? MMA, boxing, pro wrestling, live on pay-per-view. Just tap play and pick a screen to watch on. Playback shifts instantly to the screen of your choice. No hardware, no hassle. Download the Fight app and start watching today.
Well, welcome one, welcome all to V3 Fights.
This is exciting. The house is packed.
Well, here we go.
Knockout!
Oh! Pretty electric, man. People are on their feet.
This is your main event.
Wow.
Let me hear you make some
Man. This is
noise.
the fight.
Here we go.
Nice takedown. Oh, wow.
Now he's in a full mount. He's raining down elbows. Let's see if they touch gloves. Look at that. That's a nice takedown.
Trying to finish here. Right over.
Ladies and gentlemen, declare your winner. It's staying undefeated.
Everyone here just got to witness V3 history.
I'm booking a private jet to Tuscany. You thought of me? Huh? I really need to get there fast. Who the fuck you think you're talking to? Shut up, little boy. I'm talking to Fredo. Un poco di rispetto. Fredo. Sorry, Al. There was someone disturbing us. So I was telling you about Airwolf Jet Services. They're friends of ours. The best. Amazing service. You should check them out now. www.airwolfjetservices.com.
feel the power? I can. I'm starting to get better here. 2-week cold and pretty much 90% better, I think, so I'm feeling a little bit more powerful than I have been. We have a powerful, fun, entertaining, and informative show in store for you here. So, as I always say, jump on in. Let's get this thing rocking. Let me bring in my co-producer and co-host, the fantastic Dr. Adam Rorta. Roar on in here.
Roar.
You're looking great, as you always do, my friend. You got a knack for that. How are you feeling?
You know, busy. I cannot keep up with anything right now, but it's all right.
Understood.
Just spent the last week, as everybody knows, I kind of brought it up with my biological sister, and then we wrapped things up on Thursday, so the day after you guys all saw us last week. But real quick, I want to go ahead and say thank you, Colin, for bringing us another great episode. I want to go ahead and say thank you also to everybody that's tuning in. Make sure to give us a like, a comment, and a share. I know I have a little lag on my video. I can see it out of the corner of my eye, but you can still hear me. My camera that I'm using today is not the highest quality, but all those likes, comments, and shares will actually help us out with getting the sponsors that we need so that we can get better equipment in the studio for you, get us moved into a better space. We do have another space that we're utilizing, but we're still trying to step it up from there, and part of the process actually means stepping out for this week and this last week. But make sure to give us those like, comments, and shares. And also I want to say thank you to Combat Press for helping get the word out for MMA Power Hour and Fight TV, two excellent places to tune in and check us out, aside from Facebook. And it just means the world that you guys are tuning in and checking out Combat Press, also for their news stories. They are feeding us the news stories on our social media all across the place, and then they have even more news when you go over to combatpress.com. As they say, every fight has a story. You can check it out, check out all of the news that they have there. It's no fluff news, probably the best place to go to for all combat sports news. So Colin, from there, I really just have a bunch of thank yous, but we'll scatter them throughout the show. And anybody who wants to be a sponsor, definitely hit us up. Let us know that you would love to support everything that we're doing. We can work something out with you. We're not super expensive to get your logo down there in the corner of the screen, as you can kind of see what's going on over there with where the Digi South logo is right now. But definitely hit us up with some personal messages on Facebook, either our Facebook page, or you see our names right there. You can look us up on Facebook and send us a message. I do check my filtered messages, so if anybody wants to hit me up and not worry about a friend request, I do check that every day.
Very good. Well stated, Commissioner Rorta. I'm very happy to hear those good things. It seems like you must have got your sister back on her way back to Dusseldorf. And I'm sure she's on her way touching stuff.
She's on her way to Munich.
There we go. That was it. Or Berlin was going to be my second guess. I don't know where I came with Dusseldorf. Anyway, big respect to the great cities there in Europe. Anyway, so we've got a great show here. But before we get our first guest on, we've got about 10 minutes. So how about this last fight card here? Man, oh man, was that some excitement. Let's start from not the bottom, but maybe the middle, work our way up. Randy Brown against Brian Bambam Barbarina. Man, oh man, I thought Barbarina was going to take that. The odds makers did as well. Double tough guy. Had an absolute war. I think it was it with Vicente Luque or someone else who was on a streak? That he ended up getting beaten the last few seconds by. Maybe that took something out of him, I don't know, or maybe Randy Brown is just that good. But kudos, on the win to Randy Brown. I don't believe you saw that prelim fight, Doctor, but no. Let's move on to the Spider Monkey, Ashley Yoder against Suri Kondo. Asia has been producing some amazing female fighters. I really like Ashley Yoder. I was cheering for her, but just didn't have the courage to put my 10 or 20 bucks on her because of how good the women from Asia have been fighting. But absolutely impressed, and happy with that great strategy and somewhat dominating win by the Spider Monkey, Ashley Yoder. So rock on, Ashley Yoder. Then the fighter that I think I did yell out, I was telling a few people that I really like this guy, I think the only highly ranked fighter in the UFC from the country of Suriname. And we're talking about Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And I don't think I'd ever heard of that name, Rozenstruik, before. something about this guy before that fight, based off his win over Junior Albini, said, man, this dude is tough. And then looked into him, world-class kickboxer. And I did have the courage to put my $20 down on Jairzinho Rosenstruck. 9 seconds. How crazy was that? It's just like basically Crowder decided, all right, I'll at least mix it up with this big man for a second. Bad decision. You don't want to do that with Jairzinho Rosenstruck.
Right.
And the first jab knocked Crowder down, and Rosenstruck walked around, stepped over him, and smashed him. The fight was over. Rosenstruck, I don't think, received one punch. And man, oh man, I think from now on, fighters are going to realize probably you don't want to even exchange for a few seconds with the man from Suriname, who is called Biggie Boy. Jairzinho Rosenstruck. Big props to you from Suriname. Molly Mccann, Meatball Molly Mccann, I was cheering for. We've had a woman who's trained with her and a great fighter in her own right. And we're talking about the great Michigan girl. And I can't believe I just blanked. You know, I've been sick for 2 weeks. But Amanda Bobby Cooper, of
there
course.
We go.
ABC had Molly Mccann training with her for a while. Molly McCann, very passionate, tough, strong-minded, respectful woman from Great Britain. I think the Liverpool area, like the Beatles. And was the underdog in this fight, and definitely did take it to the beautiful Ariane Lipski. Some people calling her one of the best-looking women in the sport of MMA. I don't know. I'm sure she's a good girl, but tough girl too. Not as tough as Meatball Molly McCann. Props, big respect to you, Meatball Molly. Deron Winn, I know you were aware of that fight. Deron Winn coming down to middleweight, the smaller version of Daniel Cormier, did come in as the favorite. Eric Spicely, though, made it a hell of a fight. And both of them getting the $50,000 bonus
for a first UFC fight for Deron Winn. I mean, that's no small deal. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that he turned around and did that
without a doubt. So big respect to Winn and Eric Spicely off a very, very good close performance, doing his best against a world-class wrestler fighting out of AKA. Another win for our friend Javier Mendez, Crazy Bob Cook, the team over there at AKA. Always big respect. Then the main event, the Korean Zombie, and I did have the courage to throw $20 on him against Renato Moicano, the Brazilian. I didn't think it would go that way and that quick. I think just Moicano got caught. Otherwise, I think that would have been a very tough competitive fight. But man, oh man, big props to the Korean Zombie. You can't kill a zombie, can you, Adam?
No, and with that fight, that actually didn't surprise me that much. I'm just glad he pulled that win off. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch, and a lot of people would probably agree with me on this. He's a very exciting fighter, and his strikes are expected to be lethal and fatal. So
absolutely,
I mean, at least for the win, you expect that out of the Zombie, and pulled it off.
Yeah, he really did. Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. Congratulations, brother. Amazing fight. Coming up this Saturday, 3 days from now, as we're airing here live on Wednesday night, we've got some amazing fights. Let's see what the Brain Trust here at MMA Power Hour thinks. We've got about 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes, somewhere around there. Let's go for Drew Dober against Marco Polo Reyes. Drew Dober having lost to our guest coming up in about an hour, Benil Dariush, but Drew Dober still on a pretty good win streak, winning about 80% of his fights in the UFC. There he is right there. Absolutely. The man, Drew Dober, against a very tough competitive Marco Polo Reyes. I think Drew Dober gets back on the winning track. I think it's going to be a tough fight, but I think Drew Dober will be very motivated. I got Dober in that one. How about you, Doc?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% behind you on that one.
Yeah, Dober's very tough. Vince from Hell Pichel, a guest on our show, and apparently I didn't even know this. I wish I had. I would have reached out to him, but apparently he did get into a motorcycle accident several months ago and is coming back from that and is the underdog here to Roosevelt Roberts. I'm not that familiar, in all honesty, with Roosevelt Roberts. Got a good record, is favorite here, but I think I'm going to go for the man from Hell, Vince Pichel. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm biased on this one just because he's a past guest, great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is coming back from that motorcycle accident, and he is the underdog. But hey, you know what? He was on our show. I'm rooting for you, Vince.
We got to. We're loyal to the people who come on our show, and he was an interesting guy, and no filter on Vince Pichel. He tells it like it is, and he's a super cool dude. Next up, a big one. Anthony Rocco Martin, now going only by Rocco. Rocco Martin, who is the second half of the relationship with the great God, I'm so out of it with names. Harrison, Kayla Harrison is his girlfriend, the judo Olympian and the PFL top contender. Rocco Martin is a badass, having had a pretty good career at lightweight, now at welterweight, killing it, having an even better career. This is the fit for him. Got his hands full though with Demian Maia. Demian Maia only loses to Division I All-American or national champion fighters, Adam, when we're talking about Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman, the champion. Other than that, he beats you. And he is getting older. I think he's 41 years old. At some point, he will probably, down the line, if he continues, end up losing to someone as tough as Rocco Martin. But is this the time? I'm going to say it's not. I got Maia. What do you think?
Yeah, no, Maia. I'm just watching Maia just climb on somebody's back like almost every time. Yeah, no, Martin, he just...
Just a little bit too big of a jump, maybe.
It's way too big of a jump for him, I'd say, at this point. I mean, maybe I end up eating my words on this one, because Demian seems to be kind of going on the downhill slope in his career. But, I mean, Maia, he's just the best, if not... he's one of the best, if not the best, jiu-jitsu guy out there in the UFC.
In the UFC, very, very possible.
And even throughout history, I would say he's up there in the top three. So having him there, just going up against Martin, I don't know what the matchmakers were thinking on this one, honestly. Well, I think Maia has a very decisive win.
I think so, and I think he is favored a bit, but I think their feeling of Rocco can stop the takedowns. He can pick him apart on the feet, you know, and that could happen, but we'll see. But yeah, I got Maia as well.
MMA math never works, right?
No, it doesn't usually. Usually 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in MMA math. 2 more fights, and then let's quickly, after that, as soon as we can, get our first guest on. But let's go here. Jussier Formiga against Joseph Benavidez. Number 1 against number 2. Joseph Benavidez, having been in the top 2 for so many years, usually number 1. He actually holds a win over Henry Cejudo. Man, I'm so tired and out of it, but I'm coming up with the names anyway. And you know, although that was a few years back, I don't know. I think I'm going Formiga. This is going to be an amazing fight. Benavidez is such a veteran. He's so good, but at that weight class, you've got to be fast, and quickness and speed and reflexes mean everything. And I think even in his early 30s, maybe mid, he is getting a little bit old for this weight class. Hard to say it. All respect to you, Joseph Benavidez, and Joe B will be in this fight for sure. But I think I'm going to call Jussier Formiga for the win. How about you?
This one's too close to call for me, honestly. I'm leaning more towards Benavidez on this one. Okay. He just seems to have. I mean, really, he does have the speed. Every time I've watched him, he's been pretty quick with everything. But yeah, he has all the TKOs in his background versus Formiga has zero.
Yeah, that's
zero. I mean, he's either submitted or gone through decision, and I'm looking at stats right now showing 95% of his wins were via decision. So that is a huge difference with Benavidez. I think this is going to be a lot of speed brought forward by Benavidez. I think Formiga really needs to watch out for the big strikes. I mean, they're going to be coming right towards his head. Yeah. He's definitely a great defensive fighter. He's number 1 in his weight class with good reason, but I think Benavidez might actually take this one.
Could be right, because it's going to be a great fight either way. Final fight, let's only spend maybe a minute on this, is the main event. Junior Dos Santos, the former heavyweight champion. Cigano means the gypsy, is what that nickname means, against the imposing and intimidating Predator, Francis Ngannou. Man, both are really nice guys. I like to go for the older guy and the veteran a lot here. And Junior Dos Santos is such a tough guy. He's been through so many wars. He's got to be getting close to 40. You know, the underdog here, and I think somehow he's gonna strategize his way to win this fight. And I'm probably going to be wrong, but I'm gonna be cheering for Junior Cigano. Dos Santos. What's your thought?
I'm going to be going with Dos Santos on this one too. It's hard to go against Ngannou on any fight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of the hardest hitters, if not the hardest hitter out there. So,
yeah. Just maybe on pure desire, on pure will to win, maybe Dos Santos.
Yeah, Dos Santos, and you know, he does have a lot more fights under his belt.
Yeah.
I think, you know, speaking of, when we talk about any fighters going up against Ngannou at this caliber, this is when Ngannou seems to struggle a little bit, and especially somebody with Dos Santos' style, it's always made a struggle for Ngannou, and I expect to see the same thing here. I mean, it's going to be a knock him out type fight, but yeah, Dos Santos completely. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a TKO in the second round, probably.
Almost for sure this fight won't go the distance.
No, I mean,
that's a given.
It's the styles, especially with Ngannou, and Dos Santos as well. I would say Dos Santos second round knockout.
Right. Now, if he does, I think he may be the first man to knock out the Predator. When the Predator lost to Stipe, he just got grinded out for 5 rounds. When the Predator lost to the big man Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, he kind of got grinded out for 3 rounds or 5 rounds, whatever it was. So this would be amazing. I don't know that JDS can pull off the knockout, but maybe a lot of pointing. You never know, though. But that's your prediction.
I mean, Dos Santos has first off a lot more fights under his belt, but he's also got more TKOs percentage-wise under his belt.
Right.
Now, the one big thing that kind of scares me is the reach differential. Ngannou could really take it, but I mean, as long as Dos Santos walks through those punches like he's known for doing, I don't see it really being a problem.
No, and I think the boxing technique of Dos Santos is probably better. He's a more polished technical boxer, but he better be careful not to get hit. No one is going to be able to just let Francis Ngannou hit them hard, unless maybe you bring back a prime Mark Hunt when his head was like a piece of granite. You know what I mean? But otherwise, you know, it's going to be scary. Anyway, whenever you can, let's work on getting our first guest in here, and let me know. In the meantime,
we'll be doing a Skype dance here in 3, 2, and
Skype
1.
Dance. Hey, Jillian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. I see you right there. Let me give you the proper introduction here. We are so happy to have this next guest on the show. She is one of the hottest prospects out there in the women's flyweight division, in the UFC, fighting out of the awesome American top team. We're talking about the Savage, Jillian Robertson. Welcome back to the show, Jillian.
Oh, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So good to see you here. And you have a fight coming up, I think, in only a few weeks. Tell us who you're fighting, exactly when it's going to be, and where.
It's about 4.5 weeks out now. It'll be for UFC 240 in Edmonton, Canada, against Sarah Frota. I'm super excited for it.
Absolutely. And now, am I remembering correctly that you did spend some time in Canada?
Well, I was actually born in Canada, and my grandparents still currently live up there, so I spend a lot of my childhood summers up there.
That's awesome. So you're officially a Canadian. So you're fighting back in your home territory where you're from. That's got to be exciting for you. How close to where you were born is this fight going to be?
It's actually on the complete opposite side of Canada.
Oh.
But considering that my last 3-4 fights have been in my opponent's hometowns, it's going to be definitely a nice change being in my home country.
Absolutely, and I know they're going to be cheering for you, and that's going to be awesome. How long before the fight you think you'll get up there? Just 4 or 5 days or something?
Yeah, usually I get up there on the Monday before, so probably about 5 days.
And even though it's the other side of the country, will some of your relatives be able to make it?
I don't really think a lot of my relatives will be able to make it, but I know I'm definitely going to have a lot of Canadian support out there.
Absolutely. You just got to start to remember to say A and stuff. And then what's the other stuff? What are the sayings that Canadians are known for saying? And is there anything else? A boot, yeah, a boot. And again, instead of sorry, sorry. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely, always love my Canadian friends. Well, I'm excited to talk to you. You are always a great person to interview, and you always have so much passion and enthusiasm. I have a ton of questions for you here, and so let's start out applying it to this upcoming fight. So Sarah Frota, what do you know about her? I think we know that she just fought a good fight against Lavinia Souza, and wasn't that kind of a weird circumstance? Lavinia Souza is a strawweight. Can you remind me, is it that was set at a catch weight, or did Frota not make weight? Something weird happened as far as the weight in that fight, didn't it?
Yeah, the fight was set for 115, so it was a strawweight fight, and Sarah Frota ended up coming in at 123. So definitely a lot overweight, but after that she decided to move up weight classes. So this is her first fight in the flyweight division.
Gotcha.
I feel like it's definitely an exciting fight for me. I feel like it's a match made in heaven for me. It's definitely a $50K fight for me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're a good matchup with her. And not that this matters, but it's funny because you have such this wholesome all-American Canadian image, and she looks like a real tough one. So this almost could be like a Beauty and the Beast fight. All respect to Sarah Frota, but it's ironic because walking down the street, people might be a lot more scared of her than of you. But I think when it comes down to the skills, people should be more scared of you.
Yeah, I feel like looks don't mean anything. Like you said, I feel like I don't look very intimidating. A lot of people don't expect me to even be an MMA fighter. And yeah, so I feel like it may be an intimidating factor to some people, but to me, it doesn't mean anything about skill.
Right, absolutely true. Speaking about being an MMA fighter, one of the benefits of being an MMA fighter from both the men and women is you end up being very fit and looking good and looking strong. Can I ask you, if you weren't a fighter and you had an office job somewhere or were a professional doctor, lawyer, whatever, maybe you probably couldn't say you'd be as fit as you are, but how fit would you be? How serious do you think you would be about diet and exercise if you were just a regular woman in her 20s doing another job?
I'd probably be pretty fat, honestly.
I love it.
I absolutely, I don't like working out. Like, I hate lifting weights. I hate running, anything like that. I'll train all day. Like, I'll do jiu-jitsu all day. I'll spar all day. I'll do anything. Like, I love training MMA, but working out in general is probably my least favorite thing.
Right.
And food is my favorite thing. So it's just not a good combination.
Understood. So you might be one of the office worker who's saying, I'm going to get these 6 pounds off for this holiday season if it kills me or something like that, right?
Oh, maybe a little bit more than 6, but yeah.
I gotcha. Well, that's kind of a benefit then, I guess. In a way, it's kind of a nice, thing that is a result of what you're doing, because how you look and how fit you look isn't really the goal. It's funny. I think a lot of people will look at fighters about looking so attractive and looking so fit and everything. And even though that's nice, it's not really what you're looking to do. What you're doing is getting into shape and being as physically strong and limber as you can be, so that you can fight. So I think really the great shape is kind of not any sort of the goal that what most of you have, for working so hard to look like this, is it?
It doesn't even necessarily matter about strength when it comes down to fighting. It's just about technique. You just have to be technically better than someone. It doesn't matter if they're bigger, stronger, anything like that. So you can have as much muscle as you want, but if it's not practical muscle, then you won't be able to do anything. Right, and you definitely have to have a lot of core strength, and I think flexibility and really good, neck, strong back, and strong abs, huh? Oh, definitely. I feel like, especially with wrestling, it's like it works out weird muscles that you wouldn't even think of, like your neck. Like you said, like constantly you're coming home with a sore neck because you're just constantly working your neck muscles with head pressure and people trying to snap your head down and you try to keep your head up. It's just always a battle. Yeah, absolutely. And do you train mostly with women? I would imagine being a 125er, you probably would. Do you train at all with men, or is it 50-50, or does it change a lot? Whenever I was growing up at my gym back home, all I trained with was guys. Like, I was the only female who was really dedicated to MMA at the time. But since I moved down to American Top Team in Coconut Creek, we have such a huge gym. We mostly stay with the females, but there's also a huge team of 125-pound guys. So it's like we have a huge squad of just tiny people to work with in general.
Excellent. And I know your coach, Dean Thomas, is absolutely amazing. And I know you've been training with him for many years. I think, what, about 10 years now?
8 years now, yeah.
That's a while. And you're what, 23 now, 24?
24. I just turned 24.
Cool. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So who are some of the people that have been helping you for this camp?
For this camp, I've Jose Shorty Torres has been a main drilling partner so far, and Dean obviously always is in my corner. Dean's always working with me, so every single day I've been working with him.
Right. And I remember the last camp you went up to like Wisconsin or something, didn't you? And what was going on there? Where were you training? Who were you training with there with Dean, and why were you there again?
Dean actually works with Tyron Woodley as well. So Dean went up there to work with Tyron, and I got that fight 4 weeks notice, so it was pretty short notice. And I was just like, I want to take it, but I want to make sure that I have you there in my fight camp this time, because the fight before that, I didn't have him at all for my fight camp because he was gone with Tyron. So then that was my reasoning for going up there, just make sure I had my coach with me the whole time.
Right. Like, that's good. And the last fight, I think it was the win that you had. Remind us who you beat.
Veronica Macedo. That was at UFC Prague.
Absolutely, and that was a really good fight, and I know that was really important to you. How does this fight stack up under importance for you?
It's definitely an important fight for me. After getting this win, I'll have the most wins in the flyweight division.
Oh, wow.
So just continue setting records, and I just want to stay busy after this, just keep on getting wins after this, hopefully get a ranked opponent, maybe a bigger name, and just keep on working until I get close to the title.
Absolutely. Speaking about your division, the flyweight division, what do you think about a couple of recent fights that happened? Valentina Shevchenko against Jessica Ai. That was an amazing knockout. A lot of people can criticize Jessica Ai, but I'm not one of those people that jumps on criticizing someone who loses. I think she did the best she could, and it just happened really quick. But did Valentina look just as good as you thought in that fight? And is that a sign that she's just gotten even better, or is that just basically an example of someone who catches someone else? What's your feeling on that fight and what you saw out of Valentina right there?
I feel like in general, Valentina is going to be fairly dominant in this division. I don't feel like a lot of girls are really going to give her problems. I feel like she's just that far ahead technically that until you see girls coming up, like some of the younger girls coming up like me or Montana De La Rosa, like once our skills start developing and we start getting up there, then like I feel like that's when you'll see her starting to be threatened. But right now, I don't feel like there's any girls out there that are going to give her problems.
That makes sense. And at 24 years old, you're still very young. Do you have just a general vision like 2021 or 2022 or something that you could see yourself in there with her?
I definitely know it's going to be soon. Within the next 2-3 years, definitely. There is not a doubt in my mind. I plan to fight as often as possible, and I've had 4 fights with the UFC so far. But if they could give me more, then I'll be taking them.
Nice.
So it's like no matter what, if they can get me in there, I'd love to fight as often as possible, work my way up there.
Absolutely. And speaking about Montana De La Rosa, I'm definitely a fan of hers as well. She was a little bit of an underdog against Andrea KGB Lee, and I thought she would come out with the win in that fight. She really tried hard. I don't know that was a shutout like a couple of the judges had. I don't see it that way at all, but what did you think of that fight? It looked like, Montana's your age and Andrea's like 8 years older, so she's, got the more experience, and she was a Muay Thai champion, and she's got a little bit of that older 30-year-old strength, although that can be overcome with technique. But what do you think made that fight go that way? Did it surprise you? And what's your takeaway from what you saw out of both Andrea Lee and Montana?
I feel like the way it went didn't really surprise me. I expected Andrea Lee to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Montana did pull off the win. I feel like Montana going into it, it was a tough fight. It was a gritty fight for her, but it was a winnable fight. Like she still had a chance in it. Like she wasn't as big of an underdog going in, I don't think.
No.
But like obviously Andrea Lee's tough, and she put up a good fight. She kept on coming, and she was just too much for Montana at the end of the night. But yeah, I feel like they're both very impressive. They're both like Montana. I would love to have as a matchup one day, and same with Andrea. But yeah, they're both definitely top girls in the division, you know?
Definitely. Can you learn anything from watching a fight like that? Because I think maybe, you know, your style with the grappling is maybe similar to Montana. Obviously, you're different. You're your own fighter, but you're similar. You're the same age. Could you learn something from watching that that tells you maybe what you might need to do in case you were in Montana's position in a fight?
Yeah, like you said, everybody's style is different. I feel like with my style of grappling, I have more pressure. I stay on I'm better at staying on top or finding my way to the back. So I don't feel like Andrea would be getting up as easy, you know? I feel like Montana was able to get her takedowns fairly easily, so I feel like I'd be able to do the same, and I don't feel like she'd be able to get up with me.
Yeah, and that would be important because she kept getting up, and it really must have been frustrating for Montana, and she kept getting popped. And it's like sometimes it seems like she was so close to getting the better position and to keeping her down, and she just couldn't. But I guess, you know, that's part of the game. You just got to be able to do that, or if you can't, then you know, have something on the feet. But it was a tough fight. Big respect for both of them. So in that division, you've got now that Jessica I lost. I guess the last fight was Caitlin Chukagian, and who did she just beat? Oh yeah, that was against the great Scotswoman. What was her name? I can't believe it.
Calderwood.
Yes, JoJo Calderwood. I hate to take attention off of your fight, and we'll definitely come back to it. But I'm sure you watched that with interest. What's your takeaway in that fight?
I definitely felt like it was an interesting fight. I honestly had JoJo winning on the scorecard, so whatever, you know, it was close. It could have went either way. And I feel like Caitlin was like she point fights more than anything. She wins fights, and she doesn't take a lot of damage, so it's smart. But I feel like I said, nobody's going to give Valentina problems right now.
Yeah, but that's probably who will get the next shot, you would think, Caitlin Chukagian, right?
I believe, isn't she matched up with, I want to see Liz Carmouche at the moment, isn't it?
She matched up with who?
Liz Carmouche.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It is going to be Carmouche against Valentina. I'm sorry. Thanks for reminding me of that. Give me the quick, savage Jillian Robertson breakdown on how you expect that fight to unfold.
It's like I said, I don't think Valentina's going to have any problems. Liz is definitely strong, and she's an aggressive wrestler, but I feel like Valentina's striking is just too much, and she's very fairly well-rounded too, so it's not like she can't defend the shots, or she won't be able to out-grapple her, or like at least hold her own in grappling positions and get back to striking.
Right, makes sense. Any prediction on the Bullet's sister, Antonina Shevchenko? Can she be a top 10 fighter, do you think, or do you think it's going to be unlikely?
I think that's a little bit more unlikely. I feel like she's not as well-rounded as Valentina. She's more of just a striker, and her grappling isn't there as much. But Valentina's all around, like, very dominant.
You know, and some people I think that are fans wonder if someone's sister or brother was that good. Can't they help make you that good? They're almost saying, like, can't her sister tell her something or push her to do something that can make her be really, really good? And I guess the answer is you really can't, can you?
It's all about it. Every person is different. Sometimes, like, you just have the skill, or sometimes it's just natural talent. Sometimes you got to work hard for it, and if you don't want to work hard for it, you can't make somebody work hard for it.
Right. Plus, your sister can't necessarily make you as good as her if you're not, huh?
Exactly.
Makes sense. So what else is going on with you? Are you involved in anything interesting on the side? Are you playing pickup golf or basketball or hockey? Or what fun stuff is the savage Jillian Robertson doing in any of your spare time, may I ask?
Well, like I said, I've been trying to stay as active as possible at the UFC, but they haven't been getting me fights as often as I'd like them. So I've been doing a lot of grappling competitions lately. But it's like, I don't know, I go to the dog park a lot. That's about it.
Nice. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a 11-year-old pit bull.
Oh, wow. Very, very cool. Is it a regular sized pit bull or like a tall pit bull?
He's a regular size. He's short and stout and about 70 pounds.
Nice. That's cool. That's got to be some fun. Now, I would bet from the physical training you're doing, you're probably pretty good at holding him if he wants to start to run on the leash, or is it still tough because of how strong he is?
He's an old man. He doesn't do much. He's 11 years old, so there's not much running in him.
I love it. Well, that's cool. It's cool that you're an animal owner. That's really important to have a good pet and a good friend. They can be the best friends anyone has, huh?
Oh, definitely. He is my best friend.
That's super cool. So you're training out there. You're in Coconut Beach, Florida at the American Top Team. You've got lots of people there. Anyone you want to shout out? If you want to shout out any sponsors or thanks to anyone, coaches and friends, love to have you do that here, as well as letting people know where we can support you on social media.
Of course, always Dean Thomas, American Top Team, greatest coach and team in the world. Follow me at savage_UFC on Twitter and on Instagram. And go ahead and follow my sponsors, Creating Better Days CBD and Chef Fit Meal Plans.
Excellent. And I realize we've got a couple minutes left with you, so let me pick your brain, if I could, on 2 more fights. Would you mind?
Of course.
Thank you so much. One division above you, coming up, that huge July 6th card, Amanda Nunes defending her title against Holly Holm. Give me not only a prediction on that if you have one, but tell us some interesting things that you think the fans should look for that maybe some fans might not know. Something that a fighter at your high level can maybe tell us that we should look for in how that fight unfolds that will make a difference in what happens.
I feel like just Amanda is going to be a dominant champion, just like Valentina. I feel like no one's near Amanda. She's just got a different type of power that, like, literally no female has. Like, you see it whenever she fights girls. She hits them once and, like, it breaks them almost. Like, they don't want to walk forward anymore. Like, they don't want to get hit anymore because she just has a different type of power. So I feel like, she's going to be able to catch Holly a few times. She's going to be able to keep up with her, and she'll probably be able to finish it in the early rounds.
Wow. Okay. So you think dominant by Amanda. All right. And then the other one is a guest on our show a week ago, coming out of nowhere, so to speak. She was the Invicta champion. We're talking about the Phenom, Felicia Spencer, going up against Chris Cyborg. What do you think is going to happen in that fight? How do you think it's going to unfold? What do you think some of the key things that the fans should look for would be?
Actually, I haven't watched Felicia Spencer a lot. Just her last fight against Megan Anderson. That was the only time I've ever seen her, which she performed fairly well against Megan. But Cyborg's a different type of beast, you know, like she's been a dominant champion, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how that one plays out, but I have to go with Cyborg.
Gotcha. One last one. How about Aspen Ladd against Germaine de Randamie?
I'm a huge fan of Aspen Ladd. I know she's one of the younger girls too. She's, I think, my age, maybe even a year younger than me. But I feel like she just keeps on getting better and better. I'm very impressed with her. So definitely Aspen Ladd.
Absolutely. Do you ever see yourself at 135? A lot of people that are 27, 28, 30 years old naturally gain a little bit of bone density and muscle size, you may have heard. And I would imagine you would as well, but it doesn't mean you won't be able to stay at 25. But do you ever think about that? Do you ever talk about that with Dean? Do you think that may be eventually your home? Or do you think that that you're going to do whatever you can to stay at 25 no matter what, because that's what you want?
I guess I'll just see where it goes. Like, whenever I was an amateur, I actually used to fight 105 and 115.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I used to walk like 117 when I was I started fighting amateur when I was 18 years old. So I used to walk like 117 back then. And then now I'm walking around usually like 135 to 140. Mm-hmm. So I'm still a smaller 25er compared to a lot of other girls. I feel like there's some girls that are cutting from like 45, 50 coming down to 25.
Right.
So I definitely still have room to grow in the 25 division. Like, I still have space before I have that bump up to for 35 division. 35 girls are just big.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think you're probably right that this may be your home for a while. Well, I want you to keep up the great work, Jillian. I'll be cheering for you. Our entire staff here will be cheering for you on that upcoming fight against Sarah Frota. And that is what, July, what's the date on that? 27th?
Yes.
Excellent. In Canada. Look out for the Savage, Jillian Robertson. I look forward to you taking home the W, and we'll stay in touch, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye. And that is the awesome Jillian the Savage Robertson. What a nice girl, huh, Doc?
Absolutely. It's so nice the last time that she was on, and even nicer this time.
Yeah, she's just like a cool, and it doesn't surprise me that she's Canadian. Canadians are such cool people. I don't think I've met anyone from Canada that I don't like. And, you know, just like really
Canadians are too nice.
They are. They're like so cool, you know, and she is just such a gracious, nice person at 24. I think when we first had her on the show, she had just turned 23, or maybe even was like 22 and a half. This is her third appearance on our show, and she's really great, training under the guidance of the awesome Dean Thomas, former UFC fighter. For those who don't know him, look it up. D-I-N is how he spells his first name, and a very good contender. He was actually one of the earliest African American contenders in the UFC. For a while, it was Eve Edwards, our friend who was on our show, and Dean Thomas, and then I think there was Pete Spratt and maybe a couple of other guys, but they're I don't know why, for some random reason.
Didn't we have Dean on once?
We did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did a couple times. And so, yeah, one of the earlier top level African American fighters is Dean Thomas. A lot of respect for him. He's now considered one of the best coaches out there. So absolutely,
and it shows. Especially when you look at Jillian, probably one of the best examples of his people coming out and really
and Tyron
taking
Woodley.
names.
Even though Tyron lost his last fight, he won so many fights under Dean's guidance, and so many other great fighters, being an integral part of the American top team coaching staff. Dean Thomas, big respect to you, my friend. Okay, so now we have a good little while.
We have
here.
a little while. Real quick, I want to go ahead and for all of you CBD fans, enthusiasts, whatever, make sure to go on over to warfighterhemp.com to get your next batch of CBD products. They have some of the purest, most organic and certifiably organic CBD product out there. And not only that, you're able to, with every purchase, support veterans and causes with veterans. I believe Warfighter Hemp is putting 50% towards different causes with veterans, and it's a great way to help them out and help yourself out at the same time with pain or whatever you're utilizing the CBD for. They have a lot of THC-free products. Go over to warfighterhemp.com. Also, I already brought up Combat Press. You see the logo down in the bottom corner of the screen right now. Go on over to combatpress.com, where every fight has a story. I know that I go there every week to check up on the news, keep myself updated. Not just with MMA, but all combat sports. So go over to combatpress.com, where every fight has a story. Also, DigiSouth social media marketing. Hit them up if you are in need of a little help, a little boost with your social media presence. A lot of you are getting into the influence world, and if you're a brand or a company, hit them up as well. They can help connect you with the different influencers out there. A lot of people are starting to get into the hottest market, which is influencer marketing, and it's really good for you to get in on the ground floor right now. So go over to digisouth.co. You can find all of the contact information. You'll actually see my profile up there. I'm just so impressed by all the work that they've done for multiple influencers out there and multiple brands, and I decided to go ahead and jump on the train and invest in the company as well. So digisouth.co. And last but not least whatsoever is one of the greatest supporters of the show, Colin Crandall's own company that he decided to purchase because he loved the apparel. CrossTrainMMAfighter.com, where you can get an awesome t-shirt. You can also get an MMA Power Hour t-shirt by contacting us directly, and it is provided by CrossTrainMMAfighter.com.
Thank you. Dr. Adam Rorta, my favorite social media influencer.
I guess technically I am a social media influencer. Yes. I think I have the numbers, but I'm one of the small ones. But with the help of everybody out there that's tuning into the show, give all the likes, comments, and shares you can make. Colin and I both major influencers in the mixed martial arts world. It really helps us out. We thank you in advance for that. Go to our page. On Facebook, facebook.com/MMA Power Hour. If you want to go directly into the URL bar and type it in, or you can just search MMA Power Hour. We're the ones that pop up there. But yeah, make sure to give the page a like, give it a comment, and a bunch of comments, a bunch of shares, bunches of likes. Just go to all of the posts, check them out. Make sure to let us know how you feel about each post, because we love to interact. It's our go-to place aside from combatpress.com to go ahead and interact and get our news as well, because a lot of you catch stuff that we don't.
Yes, absolutely. That is very true. I couldn't agree more with that. And if your friend or relative excuse me,
excuse you,
yeah, sorry, still got a little bit of this cough left. If the person that you want to give the information about the URL doesn't know what a URL is, then don't worry about giving the information. No, you can still give them the information. Just explain what it is and what they have to do to get over there, and they'll figure it out. Anyway, I was swatting at a fly here. The fly's trying to nose its way in.
There shouldn't be a fly in the studio.
No.
It happens. I'll get some fly paper up in the rafters.
a little bit of fly paper. Yeah, it might get stuck in my face, though. It's the only There's an old gag on TV. Yes, Dr. Adam Rorta, you had a further bit of...
yeah, I was going to go ahead and throw out real quick, too. While I'm on this little spiel, make sure to go on over to our Instagram. Check us out over there. We've been fairly inactive, but check it out. And actually, if you would like to go ahead and start submitting some content for our Instagram page, we would love it if you could do that, and we would take you in as part of the team. Also, anybody out there looking for a free t-shirt, we're going to be giving away 2 of them for anybody that goes ahead, puts on or holds up a sign that says "I love MMA Power Hour" and uses the hashtag MMA Power Hour, and we'll check it out. We'll pick 2 random people. Can't be either Colin or I, so definitely do that. Go over to Instagram, do that for us. And for those of you on Fight TV, we are very active on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram not so much last week, but definitely get on over, interact. We don't interact too much on the Fight TV page, but we do go there and interact as much as we can as well. So for those of you wondering kind of where we're at, we're bouncing around between all of these sites. So Colin, we have a bunch of amazing fights coming up, and you actually brought up 3 of them that I'm super stoked for. So,
yes, let's go over those. Before we do, though, I have to ask you a question on one thing. When you said a hashtag, you know what it made me think of? It made me think of hash. Does that still exist, or are people still smoking hash?
Oh, absolutely. Anywhere? I just did a couple weeks ago.
So in that case, either you put
I'm in California. So.
There we go. Either you put a hashtag that says "I love MMA Power Hour," or you go outside in a very public area on the sidewalk, smoke some hash, and wear a shirt that says "I love MMA Power Hour." Don't do that. No, don't do it.
No, I'm not gonna have any of you getting in trouble and then blaming us.
No, we're only kidding. Besides, the hash doesn't exist anymore. I think. No, it does here. Well, maybe it doesn't. Anyway, Dr. Adam Rorta, some of these fights. Yeah, Francis Ngannou. We talked about this, but man, here's the thing. Junior Dos Santos, they say, has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. They also say that Anderson Silva had a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I believe they both do. They're not lying. Anderson Silva used it, I think, a couple times in submitting Travis Lutter and submitting Chael Sonnen, who just retired. All respect to the now retired Chael Sonnen, the American gangster, the bad guy. But anyway, Francis Ngannou, I think, is saying in press he doesn't believe a black belt in jiu-jitsu is what Junior Dos Santos has or has earned. And that's unfortunate if you're questioning someone's belt, especially at the level of Junior Dos Santos. But here's my question to you. Junior has prided himself on having good takedown defense. The only person that had much success against him was Cain Velasquez, pretty much, and to an extent Stipe Miocic, although he had 2 great fights with Stipe. Is he going to try to change his style after, what, a 15-year MMA career, or nearly that, at the age of nearly 40? And a lot of people feel he should, against a man like Ngannou with a bigger reach, younger, faster, and punching harder. But Is that something you think, can someone start to become a wrestler and a grappler after 15 years of really not doing it much? Or do you think just the fact that he's been training all these years, he has to have been doing some wrestling training, but just not wanting to employ it in an offensive manner? What do you think?
Oh boy, honestly, I think he's able to employ it whenever. But I don't think he needs to change it up. I really don't.
Right.
I think he's just got the speed capability to do it. I mean, I was explaining earlier, he's got like a 10% higher amount of knockouts with his wins than Ngannou does.
And he's fought more good guys.
Yeah, he's fought more high caliber guys, and I really think that this is to compare anybody, it'd be Cormier going up against somebody that doesn't have quite that reach, and it is a situation where Dos Santos just has that capability to deliver that knockout, that TKO, bring it in the second round, like I was saying.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to change much up. I really don't.
Just use his experience and his patience, because he could frustrate Ngannou. The one thing is, if you look at the only people to have beaten Ngannou, and I'm not sure, there may have been one person earlier that did it, but you have excuse me, you have Stipe and you have Derek Lewis, who did it recently. And Derek Lewis, I think, came up against an extra tentative Ngannou only 4 or 5 months after the Stipe fight, if I'm not mistaken. And he just looked like he really didn't want to blow it again, and was kind of fighting not to lose. In fact, that fight, with all respect to both men, was one of the most anticipated heavyweight MMA fights ever. People were expecting the action to be a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, and it turned out to be about a 1 or a 2. Because I think Derek was aware he was in there with a faster, more athletic man that probably hit even harder than himself, and dealing with the body injuries and stuff that he had, wasn't wanting to get caught and smashed by Ngannou. But Ngannou was so gun shy, having been kind of completely stuffed for 5 rounds by Stipe Miocic, that he didn't do anything either. But those are the only wins, and the Stipe brought really good wrestling, which he used, good reach and good boxing technique. Lewis brought a huge amount of weight, size, still some reach, and a huge power punch. And so, JDS, Junior Dos Santos, doesn't really resemble either of those guys that had the winning formula against Francis. And not only that, but Francis, I don't think, is going to be especially gun shy now, having shaken that off and come back and after those 2 fights got a win against Curtis Blades, who has been on our show, who was somewhat controversial there, in that win that I think Blades could have continued. But anyway, got a win over Blades and got this win over Cain Velasquez, where some people felt that Cain Velasquez knee buckled. It looked like it did, but he got kind of pushed combination. Anyway, so you're looking now at the fact that even if Junior's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, he's not a D1 wrestler. He's not.
I don't think you need D1 caliber wrestling to beat Ngannou, though. I think what you need for Ngannou is the speed and the footwork, and
right.
That's ultimately where Junior Dos Santos has excelled, and he's going to continue to do it here. So I don't really see it being a need for him to change up whatsoever.
You could be right, although he's getting a little older, and I think he may be slowing down a bit, but he's still amazing. Yeah, I'm cheering for him.
Compared to Ngannou, he's not slow. No offense to Ngannou. I mean, he is a beast, and he more or less has a puncher's chance in my mind. But
Ngannou, I mean, just the experience and the strategy of JDS. I think so too. I think Cigano for the win, but I tell you what, I don't think I would bet $20 or even $10 on that one. So no. Be careful on that one.
So I do want to jump into the Holly Holm Nunes fight a little bit.
Yes. We're talking about the July 6th card. Let's move up to the July 6th card, headlined by John Bones Jones against Maheta Thiago Santos. Do you want to?
Let's go to Amanda Nunes and Holly Holm directly into that, just because Jillian was just talking about that. Yeah, I have to completely disagree with Jillian on this one. I just think that you're talking about a professional boxer and kickboxer,
former 8-time champion boxer, and I think a high-level kickboxer before that.
So it's just a different game. It's not somebody that she's used to going up against that actually has training specific to striking.
Yeah.
And I think Holly, you know, she's just at a different level where she is actually known for taking out the people that nobody else can. Now, unfortunately, with Cyborg, it kind of became a different thing. But I think this matchup out of all of them is one of the worst ones for Nunes, and I think Holly Holm really has a chance. Do I personally feel that Nunes is going to win? Yes, I'm still the same way. I think she's a beast, but do I think that she has as much of a chance as Jillian was saying? I sorry, Jillian, I have to disagree with you a little bit on this one. Holly's just a different style and different caliber of striker than what Nunes is used to going up against, and it's just a different game plan. The way that Nunes operates, it did operate very well against Cyborg, who is another striker, but again, Cyborg is also known for the ground game. So yeah, I mean, having the ground game. She's
doesn't usually use it, but she's known for having, and she's also known for being super aggressive and for thinking that she's going to blast her opponent out, which is what she did. Plus, she went into berserker mode against Amanda Nunes, and I don't think we've seen Holly go into berserker mode ever. It's not part of the it's not part of the boxing training.
Yeah, I don't think it's as easy to train for Holly Holm. I think she's got way too much in her arsenal.
Yeah.
To be able to catch up to that after the last big fight being against Cyborg, and that's just two completely different styles. And I know that Cyborg took forever to train against Holly. She made sure of it, and that is a situation that I know Amanda has not been able to take advantage of quite the same way that Cyborg was, and that is going to make a huge difference in this matchup. And it's just that amount of training and being able to prepare for that specific fighter. In this case, it's Holly. There's just not nearly enough time for Amanda to catch up to her entire arsenal.
Right. Well, I actually, as you guys might know if you watched last week, I picked Holly to win this fight. I'm still sticking with that, and I know that our guests last week, both Felicia Spencer and what was it, then the last guest, Devontae Smith, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, Devontae. Yeah, both I think were with me and went.
Forgetting our guest's name.
I am. It's because I'm sick. It's because I'm sick. Cold has been insane. My sleep has been off. Anyway, so Devontae and Felicia and I all picked Holly. So I think Holly will win that fight. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be scary. Holly's going to have to be super patient. She's going to have to frustrate Amanda Nunes, and she can. She's got a great chin, and she's got to do what she does. She's got to be aggressive. She's got to be willing to get in the pocket and get out, go quick, maybe even employ some wrestling herself. She looked like a really good wrestler against Mccann, although Mccann unfortunately isn't all world in takedown defense skills. But I think Holly can win that. Now you're dropping below. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna jump around a little bit on this one.
Okay.
I have a lot to talk about myself this week, actually, and I came in not realizing that I've been following everything more than
good. Well, that's good. Yeah,
but next fight, actually, I don't want to get directly into the fight itself, but the news of Diego going on and leaving Jackson Wink. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? I mean, it seems like he's kind of going back against the words that he had said before, and we're friends with the guys over at Jackson Wink.
Yeah.
But aside from that, what are your thoughts?
It's very unfortunate to see, because even throughout the years that Diego was losing fights, Jackson Wink would promote him as being one of the stalwarts of their gym. No matter how people were saying he's done, he's finished, he's through, even before this last win that he had, people at Jackson Wink were proud to say, we have Diego Sanchez here, he's our guy. At least that's what I was seeing, and that's what I was hearing when I would speak with them. I don't know. Diego made statements that he wasn't feeling the love from the trainers. You know, it's so hard to say. I mean, you know, I don't know. I know they really loved Diego and respected him. I don't know. I don't know. What the situation is. It's easy for all of us or any of us to throw stones. No, Jackson Wink doesn't have the win percentage that they had in 2007 and 2010 and 2014. But they still have John Jones. They still have Holly Holm. Up until a year or so ago, they had Cowboy Cerrone, Diego Sanchez. I don't know. I can't take sides. I'm not going to hate on Diego Sanchez. Jackson Wink are good people there. We did have Coach Wink on once for a really good interview. Seemed like a really good dude. I've heard good things about him. Greg Yoda Jackson was on camera doing interviews so much during the earlier years as one of the most brilliant strategic minds in the world of MMA, and I don't see how all that changes. So I can't comment on that. But the other people there that are organizing the gym and the media and the training facilities are great guys, and I'm just sorry to see this with Diego Sanchez.
That actually leads me into this whole point with this matchup going up against Michael Chiesa. Chiesa, I always say Chiesa. That's sorry. Right, yeah. I think the training change up is really going to affect Diego. I really don't think he's going to stand a chance against Michael Chiesa on this one. Michael is just a beast. He really is. Yeah. You know, he's 15-4, while Diego, he hasn't necessarily been on a hot winning streak lately. So
he got one, but he's like 1-4 in his last 5.
Yeah, he's 1-4 out of his last 5, and that's not super impressive. I feel like Diego, he's kind of trying to push the blame somewhere right now. Honestly, I think it goes hand in hand. Yeah. I don't know Diego very well. He seems like a pretty good guy, but I think there's something going on behind the scenes that nobody knows anything about. Yeah. You know, money under the table to him to say something like this from another organization. I don't know what it is, but. You know, there are things that go on here, and I have no idea. Like you said, we can all assume, we can all throw stones and figure it out, but or not figure it out,
right? Or think we know,
or we can just sit back and just realize that it's going to affect his next fight 100%. I firmly believe that Michael Chiesa is just going to come in. He's going to submit Diego, probably a 3rd round submission. It'll be a battle. They'll be duking it out a little bit, but Michael Chiesa will probably submit Sanchez.
You could be right. Now, here's the one thing. Diego Sanchez is definitely an older guy for his division. I think he's got to be crowding 40, if not like 36, 37. And he started competing in MMA, I think, when he was 18. So if he's younger than that, if he's only 36 or 35, he's unfortunately kind of an older 36 or 35. Black belt in jiu-jitsu, though, so saying someone's going to submit Diego Sanchez is a pretty bold statement, although it certainly can happen if someone hurts someone else. You know, a lot of these guys who are not high-level jiu-jitsu guys in the past would like to say, hey, I've submitted 3 jiu-jitsu brown belts or black belts or whatever. That old saying, that bullshit saying, if you hit a black belt hard once, he's a brown belt, and you hit him hard twice, he's a purple belt, and 3 times he's a blue belt, and 4 times he's a white belt. Well, you know, I've always thought that's a bullshit saying. I mean, the bottom line is, if you hurt someone, you know what I mean? If me or Adam were somehow to hurt Fabricio Verdum by hitting him with a hammer, then possibly we might be able to submit him. You know, so can it happen? Possibly. I would think it's possible, though, that Chiesa might just win on strikes. Although, what I'm leading up to is if he somehow hurts Diego really bad, he possibly could submit him. Although that would
I think he will. One of the things that Diego I've been seeing him do is he's getting caught with his own jiu-jitsu, making the no offense to Diego, but kind of stupid mistakes and getting caught. And it's. I don't know. Chiesa's submitting people in the 2nd round, you know, and he's doing it a lot. So I just think he's going to be coming in 3rd round, you know, having to stick it out with Diego, who is a high caliber black belt jiu-jitsu guy. But third round, I still see it happening.
Possibly so, or just maybe a dominant performance. But yeah, unlikely that Diego wins that fight. Be interesting if he went wherever Cowboy went and announced that he's all of a sudden there, joined back up with Cowboy, expecting to go on a winning streak. But at least, anyway. Okay, Jorge Masvidal, number 4 ranked contender, against now a man with a big number next to him, number 5, funky Ben Askren. We've been talking about Ben Askren since our show debuted in March of 2017. And what did he, that was like pretty much 2 full years almost before he got into the UFC.
It was crazy. I never thought he was going to, because for a little while, he just started running. I remember talking about it. He was posting all this crazy stuff on Twitter for a little bit. Now, he is a Bitcoin guy. He's really big on it. So, a lot of these Bitcoiners tend to get into conspiracy theories and start spouting off stuff. And then he was also at the same time, really getting into Dana's head, trying to get stuff. I know Dana doesn't like Ben, but he knows he needs Ben. Yeah. So at the end of the day, with Ben being part of the UFC, it's just crazy. But just looking at this last fight, I can just tell you he has the ability to really stick it out in a way that no other fighter does. Now, watching all of his fights, it's the same way. How many times has he done this knock him out style fighting where he's getting obliterated in his face and just getting beat up, or it looks like he's about to lose it, and he just turns around and pulls a catch wrestling move out of his ass. Excuse my language, but I mean, that's the reality. He's able to do that and pull it out. It's like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. He's really able to do that with that catch wrestling. He really knows what he's doing. He is hands down the best wrestler in all of MMA, in my opinion. I think DJ Mighty Mouse is pretty much the only person that's up there other than Cejudo, but it's a different style of wrestling too that Askren has brought to the table.
I mean, you got Khabib, but that's Sambo, or
Sambo is similar, but
Dagestani wrestling,
Even then, I think putting Askren up against Khabib, Askren would take that one. So
that could possibly be.
I think Askren's going straight to the top here. Actually, I think he's going to just roll right through Masvidal. People are not going to like me for saying this. A lot of people, just because Masvidal is a big-time veteran in the UFC specifically, and has done a lot. But I just think realistically, pretty much anybody in this division is not going to be able to put up with Askren.
Very possibly. So let's do some serious breakdowns here, comparing opponents of Ben Askren to each other, and let's see if we can possibly learn something. And I'd like your opinion on this, Adam. Last fight was against Robbie Lawler, Ruthless Robbie, former champion. Similarities and differences with with Jorge Masvidal. Similarities, both tremendous longtime veterans of the sport. Similarities, both like to strike more than wrestle, but both have both skills. Masvidal having a bit better offensive wrestling, Robbie though having very good defensive wrestling. Both powerful guys, both very strong, quick, technical, in a different way. Robbie throwing more hooks and power punches, but having an incredible chin. Robbie maybe slightly older, or at least a little bit more miles on him, been in a few more wars than Masvidal, so Masvidal maybe a little bit fresher. Robbie also maybe a physically bigger welterweight, having been both a middleweight from a lot of his career and a welterweight, whereas Jorge Masvidal was never a middle. Well, I think many years ago he was, but for the last decade plus, Masvidal has been a lightweight and a welterweight. Other than that, though, a lot of similarities. One of the things that Robbie did was just kind of, grab Ben, elevate him, and slam him on the ground. And I don't think that Jorge Masvidal is going to be doing something like that. But I don't know, man. Right. A lot of people are saying that Masvidal is also going to be really aware that we kind of have a one-trick pony, so to speak, in Ben Funky Ben Askren. Although that one trick is amazingly good, his wrestling is absolutely all world on the level of Khabib. But I don't know. I think they're saying that maybe Masvidal is going to be able to bust him up. I remember when Masvidal went against Demian Maia. You can't compare Demian Maia's wrestling with Ben Askren. However, for a non-American who didn't go to a D1 or D anything school, Demian Maia is maybe the only person shy of George St. Pierre to have become so good in his freestyle wrestling. So he's a very good freestyle wrestler, if not great. And he did hold a win, although just by a whisker, over Jorge Masvidal. So I think Masvidal has a strategy, and a lot of people, I think, say he's going to just basically light Ben up enough and by stopping the takedowns or by scrambling back up. Almost this fight almost might be what some people think Tony Ferguson and Khabib will be. I started to lean a little bit toward Masvidal. Although I won't bet a single dollar.
Yeah, I mean, this is one I'm not going to bet on, but I am.
You're going to go for the wrestler, I think. In this one.
Yeah, real heavy. And like you said, they're actually both wrestlers, but Askren is just at a different level.
Yeah.
And what he's worked on for the most part is catch wrestling, which is a lot different than this freestyle wrestling that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So again, you're talking about
he's got his funky
the difference
style,
between catch wrestling and sambo. That's actually a lot closer and a lot similar than freestyle and Greco-Roman and everything that Ben's been known to do. But he's also a very dominant catch wrestler and can really just pull stuff out that people haven't seen for 50 years. So we're just looking at something that Ben's capable of doing on a level that nobody else in the UFC really is.
In the UFC, but I would be remiss if I did not throw out our good friend Curran Jacobs, who is now on his way to being an MMA fighter. He is the current catch wrestling world champion.
Oh, I'm stoked for him to come in. I was actually just thinking the same thing. It's like, are we going to throw out Curran here?
Yeah, so if we're talking catch wrestling modern day, Curran actually went and finally did start training with his longtime nemesis and adversary, Josh Barnett. And I think Barnett even realizes the skill in the 30-year-old from Michigan, former captain of Michigan State Spartan Wrestling D1, and I think he was team captain, and so he is really amazing. But it's going to be a great fight. It really, really is. I think that all Ben has to do, though, is not distract Masvidal when he's being interviewed by someone. Otherwise, he may get punched like Leon Edwards did. But I don't think that's going to happen. But that's going to be a great fight. Let's go one more, because we're about 7 minutes away from really wanting to make sure we get our next guest in time.
So the big one, the main one on that card.
John Jones, Bones, against Thiago Marreta Santos. For some reason, they have Santos shown as number 2 contender and Jones shown as number 2 contender, but I don't think the champion's the number 2 contender, at least in any world I've ever seen. So I think the UFC graphic is wrong there. John Bones Jones, the UFC light heavyweight champion, against Thiago Marreta Santos. Did they show stats there? Can you pull it the other way? Let me see the stats, because I saw them face off. It's not showing height, weight, So the Marreta is 6'2" and John Jones 6'4". They had the face off at the presser, and John Jones was wearing very nice clothes, and I have a feeling he may have had a little bit of a heel on one of his shoes, not exaggerated, but he looked like 3 or 4 inches taller than Marreta, who was wearing casual clothes. I don't think that's the case. I think there is just a 2-inch height difference, so it's not really dramatic. Really, really tough fight. John Jones is absolutely amazing. He is as confident a fighter as you'll get. He, I think, is getting better at 31 years old. That's a great age to be for his weight division. So hard to say that someone will beat him But I think that Thiago Santos is going to be a live dog. I really do.
I mean, I really see him being a live dog in this one. Do I see him winning? No, but it's going to be a live dog. I do see this one going to decision. This is going to be one of the better fights Jones has had since Cormier.
I think so.
And I think it's almost going to be a repeat of the Cormier one. I think it's going to be just as boring.
I wouldn't think so because of this style, with the capoeira style and the aggressive style. The only way it's boring is if Jones either keeps taking Santos down and maybe doesn't get a lot done on the ground, although usually Jones does get a lot done on the ground. But maybe if that happens where Santos just defends, or maybe if he takes him down and keeps trying to get something going and can't, and there's all these scrambles and transitions with nothing happening, that's possible. But I don't think so. I think Marreto Santos is going to go for it, and we may see John take one of the harder punches that he's ever taken, if not several. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting fight. You know, one of the things I've said is that Jones has fought a lot of tough guys, but so has Santos. Jones obviously a little bit more experienced, fought more really good guys, but the guys that he's fought, a lot of them didn't necessarily have huge punches and super polished boxing skills, save for two. I think Glover Teixeira had these skills, but he got his shoulder dislocated right away with what John did, with a little bit of a shoulder lock from the standing position, and was injured, damaged early on, and couldn't get on track. We had Alex Gustafson, who did use some polished boxing, but not a super lot of power, being a long, lanky guy. But he did give John trouble, but John wasn't really afraid of his punches. And then Daniel Cormier, I think he was afraid of Cormier. Not afraid, but he was respectful and concerned with Cormier's punches. But with him being, 8 inches taller than Daniel Cormier, I think he just was able to keep that distance good enough. And with such a dramatic height and reach difference, he was able to stay out of harm's way for the most part. But this is the first guy who is only a couple inches shorter than him and has this much power. I saw Anthony Lionheart-Smith, who has fought both of them and did lose to both of them, say that it should be a really tough fight. He said, I think Lionheart said if Santos hits an elephant right, he'll knock him down or out.
Right.
And so he's really was giving testament to how hard the man hits. But he says the hole in Marreto Santos's game is his wrestling. So I guess if Jones threatens and shows he can take him down at will, that could slow down Santos's output, and then that could become a crap fight, a boring fight. I don't know. I just think Marreto's going to go for it. I really think so.
I don't think it's going to be a boring fight, but I think it's going to be a lot less exciting than a lot of people are hoping for. Capoeira is a lot more exciting style than what Jones is used to going up against, but that doesn't mean that Santos is going to pull out all the capoeira.
Well, but the polished boxing, it's not just capoeira. He's got the capoeira, and he's got really good polished boxing and really, really hard punches.
Well, I understand that, but that being the case, Jones is going to be standing back, just like he did with Cormier, and they're both going to be dancing a lot. That's what I see here, because they are both strikers, heavy strikers, and it's just going to be a lot of dancing. They're both prepared for that.
Right. Do you think Jones will try to employ some of his wrestling against an opponent?
Oh, absolutely. Against Santos, it's almost a surefire win if he does do that. Santos is not known for defending the takedown. He's not nearly as good at that even as Jones is. Jones can defend the takedown probably better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'd say he's probably the single best defensive person when it comes to takedowns. takedowns.
Oh yeah, well his wrestling is very good. Even though he was junior college, he was high level junior college and really successful.
Oh, absolutely. But Santos is not known for the defense against the takedown.
It's true. We ought to wrap this up because I don't want to be late for our next guest. So you can start working on that.
No, I'm ready once we are.
So I was going to say this: if John decides not to do any wrestling, though, this is going to be a lookout fight because look out for Thiago Santos possibly knocking him cold.
Absolutely.
So let's see if Jones remembers his wrestling. All right, let's get a Skype dance here. No music and I'm dancing. That's me. That's just me.
Let's see if we can. Boom, boom, boom. Skype dance. There we go.
Excellent. Benil, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you just give me about 2 minutes? I just got to get in my car.
Yeah, for sure.
My phone battery.
Do you want us to keep the connection or just Skype you back in 2 minutes?
No, you can keep the connection. I'm about to pull up to my car. I can
Excellent.
Just get in there.
No problem. In the meantime, I'll give you a good introduction.
Okay.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited about having this next guest on the show. I wanted him on the show for a while, and we just connected a short while back. I've been a fan of his for a long time. He is one of the best lightweights in the UFC, one of the most experienced for being as young as he is, and just coming off an amazing win with an absolutely sick armbar over Drew Dober, which also was a triangle choke at that, and he has an amazing fight coming up as well against Drekar Close. We're talking about Mr. Benil Dariush. Welcome to the show, Benil.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
And do you still need a minute, or are you good?
Give me about 30 seconds. I got to get into my car. My phone is about to die, so I don't want to disconnect with you halfway in.
No problem at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to let him get situated, and I'm really anxious to talk to Benil. His fight is coming up, I think, in about 3 weeks or so, and it's a stacked card against Drekar Close out of MMA Lab. And you know, man, every fight that he's in is exciting, and just, you know, a really great fighter that keeps on fighting at a high level, and I think has had several top 10 contender fights, winning at a great clip, and at just 30 years old, I think the man could be still getting better and better. And so we're gonna have a lot of great questions for Benil, and get to know where he's at, and see if we can maybe get some tips and some insight for fighters from a man who's just doing it at a high level, and you know, being impressive year in and year out. And so we got the card transfer, and whenever you're ready, Benil, let me know.
Ready to go.
Sounds good. Excellent. So welcome to the show, my friend. Really happy to have you here on the MMA Power Hour.
Thanks for having me, man. Excited. Lots of stuff to talk about. Excited for the fight as well.
Absolutely. Let us know the date of that fight and where that's going to be, so people can try to get tickets, and or at least make sure to get the pay-per-view or buy it if it's not, or see it if it's not.
It's going to be July 13th in Sacramento, and I believe it's going to be on ESPN or ESPN Plus. I think it's a ESPN Plus show.
Excellent. And have you ever fought in Sacramento before, or in California?
I fought in California, but never in Sacramento. I fought in Pomona, Culver City. I fought in the Forum, which is LA. Mm-hmm. And now Sacramento. That's another one. To be honest, most of my fights have been out of California, even though I live in California.
That's right. And that's what I was going to ask you. Where are you based out of? What gym do you train at? And what area do you live in?
I live in Yorba Linda, which is near Anaheim. I always tell people Disneyland. I'm 15 minutes away from Disneyland, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, we know where you are."
Very cool.
Yeah, and I train out of King's MMA in Huntington. That's our headquarters, and also I own my own gym, a King's MMA as well in Anaheim.
Very cool. So I did not know that. So you do own a branch of King's MMA in Anaheim, and what area of Anaheim is that located, and how can people get in touch with you if they want to go train at your personal branch of King's MMA?
I'm located in East Anaheim. I'm off of Lakeview and La Palma. If you just look up Kings MMA, you'll find us, and then you can email us at kingsanaheim and at Gmail, and people can come train here, or some people just come just to say hi. Sometimes people come to buy stuff. It just depends. But for all that stuff, all you got to do is email us at kingsanaheim@gmail.
Fantastic. And now I've been hearing about Kings for several years. Have they been around for 5 years, or is it more like 10 years or more?
Probably around 12 now in America. But Rafael Cordero, who's the head coach, he was also in shoot box.
Yes.
He brought a lot of guys like Fabricio Verdum, Shogun, Vanderlei Silva, Pele. There's a lot of guys he worked with in Anderson Silva. He worked with a lot of guys in Pride and in Brazil in shoot box.
Absolutely. I remember Rafael Cordero, and I was a big fan for many years. I've been following UFC since UFC #1, and I watched all the Prides as well. And I remember he was a integral part of that shoot to box team with all those amazing fighters. And so I guess he is the head of Kings. Who else coaches over there with Coach Cordero?
He's head coach for MMA, and then we have Ricardo Testai for Jiu-Jitsu, who is an excellent coach. This is at the headquarters, and then we have a ton of fighters, and and we just all work together and learn off of each other.
Excellent. Who are some of the guys that you usually work with, if you want to shout out any of them that help you a lot for your training and that you help them as well?
I have guys like Arthur Estrazulas. He just fought in LFA and won. I have Giga Chikadze. He's a kickboxer, world champion kickboxer, and karate world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Rafael dos Anjos is a guy I train with. Fabricio Verdum is always in the gym. He's a little bit big, but we'll grapple here and there. Calvin Gastelum. I mean, the list goes on. This week, Nasrat was Half Crest was in town, and I got to train with them. So it's a big list. If I have to go over the whole list, man, I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna forget a lot of people.
Absolutely, a bunch of killers there. I was looking that they were doing a split screen with Nasrat and Gastelum, and they were saying, "Is this the same person, or are these brothers, or what is that?" Did they laugh about that? They must, I'm sure, huh?
They actually look a lot alike, and stylistically too. They're both southpaws. They're both power punchers. It's just it's really funny. But yeah. I can tell you they are different. Calvin's a little bit more. Calvin, I would say he's a little bit more calm. Nasrat has a lot of emotions.
Right.
But they're pretty similar as well.
Do they train together sometimes?
So Nasrat has been having a hard time coming to California because of his visa issues, but he finally was able to figure that out. So he's going to be coming to train with us more, and I'm sure they're going to train together as well.
That would be great. See some photos on that would be fun. Awesome. But, man, I got to give you a lot of credit for that last fight against Drew Dober. I know when people hear your name, they know someone's bringing it, but also when people hear Drew Dober's name, they know someone's bringing it. And so that was a fight that I think a lot of people were saying, man, who wins this fight? I don't know. And that was just a great finish there. And I found out from you that it looked like the armbar, but you actually said that you found out from Drew himself that he tapped from the triangle. Can you talk us through that setup? I wish we could show the graphic here. We can't. We don't have permission for that. But what was your thought in the last few seconds before you got that position? And what did you see, and what did you start out to do in getting that interesting submission from your hip while Drew was still like partly standing?
Sure. I mean, Drew is such a tough guy, and he came out guns blazing. So he really, honestly, that fight could have gone either way. Like you said, he's a great fighter. And one of the things that I had to utilize was just to be a little bit more patient and finally get him to the ground where I felt I had the bigger advantage. The way the submission was set up, it was actually set up from a Kimura in half guard. So what that's called is a Kimura Trap. where I go into half guard. The person tries to get an underhook to come up for a single leg, and I use that underhook and I turn it into a Kimura. If you look at the position, my leg is stuck in half guard. As soon as I'm able to free my leg, I put my leg over into mount, but it's not a very good mount. It's a weak mount where he can just churn into me, and he does churn into me. And as he churns in, I lock up a triangle, and I attack the arm at the same time. So the triangle it chokes you, but it's not secure in the form that it doesn't hold your head inside. You're able to pull your head out really well. But what allowed me to keep his head in was the fact that I continued to attack the arm. I was working on the armbar the entire time. I actually popped his elbow and he didn't tap. I really thought he was going to tap from the elbow pop. So when his elbow popped and he didn't tap, I just assumed we were going to go to the third round because there was, I think, 20 seconds. I honestly don't know how much time was left, but I think it was like 30, 20 seconds left. So I assumed there was very little time left, and if I let go of the position, he's going to come on top and he's going to utilize his ground and pound. So I just thought to myself, I'll hold on to the arm and I'll keep squeezing the leg so he doesn't pop his head up. But it turned out the triangle was tight enough where he couldn't breathe and he had to tap in the last bit of the round.
Nice. That was slick, and I know a lot of people ended up thinking it was an armbar. Did the announcer announce it correctly as a finish by triangle or armbar? Do you remember?
I think everybody thought it was an armbar because I thought it was an armbar. I was trying to do an armbar.
Right.
The triangle was just there to hold him. I didn't know it was a triangle till after the fight.
Yeah.
After I spoke with Drew, I asked Drew and about his arm, and he said, the elbow pop, but he was gonna, he was just gonna bite it and then come out in the third round. But he told me the choke was actually what got him. He couldn't breathe, so he said he was gonna pass out, so he decided to tap.
That was slick, and a testament also to your strong legs. I think I was telling you, I was talking to one of my teachers, Fabiano Iha, who they called King of the Armbar, fighting in the UFC in the early part of this century and last century. And he said, yeah, to do that, you have to have some strong legs. So I think your legs were strong enough, and as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, your technique was that good that sometimes something you don't even know is going to happen when you're that conditioned and when you're that good. It's just kind of like back in the day with Michael Jordan. He sometimes didn't even know what was the goal, but he was so good that the play ended up materializing. So I think that's testament to your skill, and I like your game plan of not letting go, and that did pay off. But that was definitely slick. You looked really somewhat either happy or surprised. I remember the graphic they kind of showed, and you had an interesting look on your face after they separated you and you knew you had won. Were you surprised or were you relieved? What was the thought, if I could ask for that look on your face?
I was surprised for sure. I really thought we were going to the third round, and I just laughed it off. I was surprised and I just laughed it off. I was gonna get up and celebrate, but I was a little bit. I was just pondering the position, and so I just kind of let it go at that, and I was relieved because I had a tough weight cut, and just it was a hard fight, and I was just relieved to be victorious. But that position, as far as the triangle goes, as far as having this leg strength, before I started MMA. I was competing in the gi. I was a world champion at the novice level, which is white belt, and then I was world champion at blue belt, purple belt, and brown belt.
Oh wow!
I never competed as a black belt, so I was able to win at every belt. And triangle was my the highest submission move I had was the triangle. So yeah, I feel I have strong legs, but also I have a lot of muscle memory in that position. So when I lock up a triangle, it doesn't just disappear, into thin air.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is that side, I mean, everyone has a better side. If you're right-handed, you tend to be able to do things better on your right side. Is that, you know, not that you want to give away secrets, but I would imagine you could have done that on your left side. Would it have been equally as easy, or is it was it something that was a good thing that it ended up being on the right side?
You know, I'm left-handed, but yeah, that's the funny thing. I'm left-handed, but in jiu-jitsu, everything they taught me for a right-handed person. So I don't really have a preference when it comes to submissions. I'll work either side, especially with the Kimura. Anything with the Kimura trap, it has more to do with your forearms getting tired than it does with the comfort of it. You know, if you grab a Kimura and the guy's being difficult and you're just trying to rip it out, your forearms are going to get worn out. But you know, over the years, I've built a tolerance where I can hold on to these grips and just not let go until my opponent wears down.
I like that, and that's something that comes in handy. And it's also clear that some of the things you were doing were baiting him into the position you wanted. I think in two different parts of that position, you mentioned kind of baiting him into doing something where you put on something and gave him an angle. I think at one point you were mentioning setting up a triangle but not really strong, and then setting up something with half guard but not really strong. And so I think that, you know, that's kind of like higher level jiu-jitsu than some of the beginners and intermediates know, where you're actually setting up something but not really well, but it's because of the purpose of having them bite on that for you to transition to something else, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it was his team. They yelled out 30 seconds. So I thought to myself, if there's only 30 seconds, I might as well try to go for a submission. And the Kimura was the closest thing. But I think there was more time left. This actually worked against them. I think it was his team that yelled it out 30 seconds, or maybe I just heard it in the fight.
Right.
So when I heard 30 seconds, I thought I'll go for a Hail Mary, where I'll risk it.
Right.
I put myself in a position where if he does get out, he's going to end up on top and he's going to be able to drop bombs on me. So I risked that position, not realizing there was more than 30 seconds left. There's about a minute left when I hit the triangle, or when I got to the submission, and it worked out. But the setup was definitely intentional. I intended to give him top position to get a submission for sure. And then when I was on top, the second round, a lot of times you'll see me go into mount, and then you'll see him put me back in close guard. People think, oh, he recovered, but in reality, I want him to do that, because every time he recovers and I just put my foot back in mount, he just put all his effort into recovering, and I didn't really have to do much to get back to the position that I was. So it has a lot to do with how much energy we expend in each round.
Yeah, and that's really important, especially in 3-5 minute rounds or any sort of professional MMA fighting. The energy saving is energy that can make the difference between victory and defeat.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I can sprint. I can sprint for 10 seconds, and in about 6 seconds you start to slow down. Yep. That's normal for everybody.
Yep.
And MMA is kind of similar. You're gonna be able to. There's a certain pace you can keep for 25 minutes or for 15 minutes, and then there's this pace that goes beyond that, and that you're just not going to be able to keep. And finding the right pace is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think being a black belt in jiu-jitsu is important in MMA. I think that if we go back like 10 years, it was even worse. You had 80% of the guys out there having only blue belts. Now I think you have an assortment of purple and some brown and a few black. But do you think that as time goes by, we're going to see people see your submission there and other really great subs and realize, hey, even though people can say maybe your wrestling matters a little bit more, or maybe your striking matters a little bit more, that the jiu-jitsu really does matter, and that being a high-level jiu-jitsu guy is actually going to come in handy and could really help your career a lot?
I think people don't realize one of the reasons why people are starting to say, "Oh, jiu-jitsu, wrestling is better. It's the more dominant." It's you have to look at the sports right now individually. jiu-jitsu has become very sport. It's become something very different than it was 10 years ago, and even 30 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yep.
And because of that, a lot of this stuff doesn't translate well into MMA. While wrestling, it really hasn't changed in the last 30 years. Wrestling, they're still great at grinding. They obviously make technical adjustments, but they're still great at grinding. They're still great at getting on top. They're still great at scrambling. All the things you need for MMA, they continue to do it. While a lot of jiu-jitsu guys have, especially guys in the gi, have found ways to slow the game down, and which is not wrong. I think it's perfectly fine, but they found ways to slow the game down, which allows them better control, less scrambling, and they take away the weapons of the opponent, which is the ideal thing to do in a martial arts match. But because of the changes in jiu-jitsu, I think we're seeing it less effective in MMA nowadays. But I think in reality, anytime you see a submission, anytime you see a fight, anytime you see a guy win by submission, and if you look at the statistics, still a majority of wins are by submission. So
Yep.
I think jiu-jitsu is just as important as wrestling. It's just, how do you train your jiu-jitsu?
Absolutely, and I think having both is really a great equation, because I know your wrestling is pretty darn good as well, and I think that that it seems like you have a combination of people that are good wrestlers with, you know, maybe some powerful punches, or are good strikers that maybe have their jiu-jitsu pretty good, but you're not seeing too many cases of guys that are really good at their jits and also have some good wrestling. And I think those two together are a really good equation. I'm not diminishing the striking, because that was my original style starting up in striking, but I think that guys like yourself that have good wrestling and good jiu-jitsu together, you know, and I agree with you, I do think they are equal, and the jits is important, but I think the wrestling and jits together is a good combination. What's your background in wrestling? I guess you didn't spend a lot of time at it, but you did some, I'm sure, or at least if not, you're almost like a GSP type of prodigy for me, as far as what I see you do. But what's your experience with the wrestling, and how good do you feel about your wrestling?
I didn't. Well, I wrestled about a month in high school. My senior year, I stopped playing soccer, and one of my friends just invited me to wrestle for a little bit. So I jumped in and I wrestled a little bit. I mean, I think I had maybe 10 matches total, maybe. And then, but because I really liked it, I started doing jiu-jitsu. I enjoyed wrestling so much, I thought to myself, man, I want to do something like this. And then I was going into college, and everybody was telling me how it's hard to stay in shape when you go to college and all that nonsense. So I was like, okay, I'll try something. I decided to pick up jiu-jitsu. But my wrestling background is everything. I mean, I just found people who knew wrestling, who understood wrestling, and then I spent a lot of time with them. And then on top of that, wrestling for MMA, that's a whole nother beast. So yeah. I just try to study, and with studying, you got to drill a lot. You got to be able to. The more you drill, the better your timing gets. People forget something. People think, oh, if you don't have the timing, you don't have the timing. That's not true. You can make anything happen as long as you spend a lot of time drilling it. You understand it. You understand the feeling of it. You have to know it from the details perspective, and then you also have to know it from a feeling perspective. And that's what I've been starting to realize about wrestling. Wrestling is not just like, okay, who's going to go harder? Wrestling is just like jiu-jitsu. The better your details are, and the better you can feel those details, the better your wrestling will be. And I'm just trying to approach it that way. Absolutely.
You've got a great bunch of guys there with Kelvin Gastelum and other people that I'm sure are a great help. Speaking about wrestling, what did you think about that Cejudo and Reyes fight? Were you surprised to see Cejudo do it, or did you think that his overall skills were going to give him a real good chance there to be a champ?
Honestly, I was really surprised. I thought Reyes might be a little bit too much for him. But you know, and then watching the first round, I was like, oh man, it's a done deal. But then Cejudo, man, you got to give it to him. He's a champion. He found a way, and he pulled it off. I respect that a lot. Yeah. I thought it was a great fight overall, and he really, really pulled it out. Very impressive.
Absolutely, same here. So Drakkar Klose, an interesting guy. Did he fight one of your King's teammates that you mentioned? I think you may have thrown out one guy that he had fought. Was it Dikisi? Did you mention Dikisi being as a guy? No.
No. I don't think he's fought any of my teammates. I don't know much, to be honest. I've seen him fight before, but I didn't know much about his background, like where he trained or who he's affiliated with or where he's from and stuff like that. But I know he trains at the lab. I just found, watching his fights and the commentators, they mentioned he trains at the lab. I know the lab has a lot of good fighters. And just knowing that, I know it's going to be a good fight. He's going to come in prepared, and it's going to be a great fight.
Absolutely, and that is definitely something a lot of people are looking forward to. And in the 155-pound division, it's going to be very significant. So you've been in the UFC since you were, what, 25 years old?
Yeah, I think so. I think 25. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And you've got, what, 8 fights now?
I have 16 fights in the UFC.
Wow. I mean, that's fantastic. That is something that I'm really impressed with, because we've been seeing you fight so much that a lot of people might think, well, this guy may have gotten in when he was 27 and he's 32 now or 33, but you're just 30 years old right now and you have all this experience. I think that's a really good situation. I mean, getting in when you did and having all the experience you have, but still being as young as you are, I think puts you in a good position. You may be just entering your prime right now. What's your thought on that?
Yeah. So when I came to the UFC, I had 6 fights, and 5 of those fights were in the first round. I finished those fights in the first round, or 4 of those fights. To be honest, I didn't really have a lot of MMA experience. When I came into the UFC, that's when my MMA experience started to play out. I started gaining experience. I started kind of understanding MMA better, but I'm so grateful to have that early experience or early beginning in the UFC. I know a lot of guys want to come into the UFC, and that's how I was in the beginning. I want to come into the UFC and I want to go straight to the title. And ideally, if that happened, great. But these 6, I think actually 15 fights. These 15 fights I've had so far, they've been such a great experience. God has blessed me so much throughout the whole thing. I'm grateful for it. I'm a better person, better man for it. And I don't know if I would have been where I am right now if I had won everything and I had gone straight to the title. So as far as being in my prime, I definitely think I'm in my prime right now, and my prime is not going to go anywhere. I'm understanding my body better. I'm able to keep myself healthy, and I'm able to train. I think I'm training way better than when I was 20. 20, I didn't even understand training, looking back at it. And hopefully in a couple of years, I'll think the same way, because that way I'll know I'll have pushed myself to the next level.
Absolutely. I think you're in a really, really good position. And, you may only be 2-3 more fights away possibly from fighting for a title. Do you have any sort of plans, or putting a time frame on oneself is not a good thing, but do you like to think that in a perfect world 2020 or early 21 could be your time, or any thoughts on that at all, or goals?
The title is going to come. I don't know when, but the title is going to come. I don't really care about the title. I care about beating every single person in front of me. Nice. Because at the end of the day, the title it's just a belt. It doesn't really when I retire, I want to look at my career and say I fought everyone they put in front of me. There was no one that I avoided. There's no one I skipped, and I fought every guy, and I fought the best guys, and that's all I really care about. The title will come with that. And I know my division right now is in a bit of a mess, so I'm not worried about it. I just want to fight good opponents, and I want to beat them.
Absolutely. That's a very good goal and very well stated. We've got about 5 minutes left with you, Beneil, and I'd love to get some advice from you for fighters. But before I do that, can I get your quick opinion on a few fights? Everyone on the internet loves to hear what the pros have to say. Would it be all right if I asked your opinion on a couple fights?
Sure.
Excellent. I appreciate it. So coming up, I guess a little bit down the line, Khabib against Dustin Poirier. Most people do feel that will be a really exciting fight, except for the people feel that Khabib will just go in there and ragdoll him quickly. Any thoughts or any interesting insight, from being in that division at the highest level of our sport yourself, and what people can look for or expect, that what will be important factors in how that fight unfolds?
Looking at Dustin Poirier's grappling, I don't see how he's going to deal with Khabib. But you have to remember, Dustin Poirier is at ATT, and ATT has some of the best wrestlers and some of the best wrestling coaches. So they do have the tools to figure out Khabib's game and to neutralize his game. But right now, I just don't see it. I have Khabib winning.
Gotcha. Absolutely. How about in a division above you coming up this weekend, Demian Maia against Rocco Martin?
That's an interesting. With Tony Martin, I fought Tony Martin my third fight in the UFC, and I know how tough he is, and I know how hard it was for him to make 155.
Yep.
I think at 170 he's looked so good. I think he's going to ride the momentum and he's going to win this fight.
Yeah, if he does, he'll be the only one that wasn't the D1 wrestler that would have beaten Maia at 170. It was just Colby, Tyron, and Kamaru Usman. But it is possible. I appreciate the insight. We'll look for that. Your last opponent, Drew Dober, can he get back on the winning streak against Marco Polo Reyes?
Yeah, for sure. I think he's going to win in the first or second round.
Okay, appreciate that. How about the main event, Junior Dos Santos against Francis Ngannou?
This is a little bit tricky because Junior Dos Santos, man, he's one of those guys. Whenever I pick against him, he pulls it off. He has a skill set. He has the boxing skills to possibly neutralize Francis Ngannou's game, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, tough one. On the fence on that one?
Yeah, I'm on the fence, but you know what? I'll go with Junior Dos Santos. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I did too, and my co-producer and co-host, Dr. Adam Rora, did as well. We think that Cigano, the gypsy, is going to be able to find some way with his experience and skill, because it does mean something. Last one, how about John Jones against Thiago Marreta Santos? Am I wrong? I think that's not going to be a walkover for John Jones, and I think if John Jones doesn't remember his wrestling, this could be the guy that knocks him into next week. What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't see it. I think John Jones is gonna run through him. The problem with Marreta is he does run out of juice. He does run out of strength. He does run out of conditioning. And John Jones is the type of guy who can keep the same pace for 5-minute rounds. It's not a good stylistic matchup for Thiago Santos. We'll see. You might be right. I just don't see it. I think John Jones is going to win clearly. He's going to have a clear and decisive victory.
Understood. Actually, one last one. How about the ladies? Holly Holm challenging Amanda Nunes for her women's bantamweight championship.
It'll be a frustrating 5 rounds, but I think Amanda's going to win.
Understood. Yeah, I think it will be challenging. All right, so for fighters that see what you're doing and see that you've been in there winning year after year at a high level and maintaining it, and at 30 years old, you're just getting better and better. What can you tell a younger fighter who's coming up that's just kind of starting to get things going and really, really wants to be successful like yourself, wants to be at a good school, wants to be a guy that's having these impressive finishes? Can you give maybe a couple minutes of some of the most important things that you found that have helped you to be able to be fighting in the UFC, on TV, and continuing to do well and succeed?
I think, one, find a gym that's trying to reach the highest level, because there are gyms out there that just want for everyone to have a good time, everyone to train, and to be disciplined, which is nothing wrong with that, and majority of people who train, they train for this reason. They train because they enjoy martial arts. But for fighting, you need to find a gym that is trying to make champions. That's really important. And also, you need to have 3 levels. You need to have guys way better than you. You need to have guys at your level, and you need to have guys a little bit less than you, a lower level than you. Unless you're a complete beginner, then right. you can go anywhere and you're going to improve. But if you're working hard, you need to have those 3 levels, because you can't always win in the gym, but you can't always lose as well. So you need to be able to have some victories. You need to have some losses, and then you need to have those guys that you're so even with that every time you go with them, you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, that's going to help you improve faster and faster. So things like that make a big difference.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And obviously joining the Kings team under Rafael Cordero is not something everyone can walk in and do, but possibly being able to train at your gym under your tutelage, it looks like is possible. If someone wanted to see about maybe training there, are you only going to be training at your gym people that are just wanting to work out, or are you actually open to having some people train under you at your branch of Kings that might want to actually be competitive fighters?
We actually do. We train fighters as well as people who just want to do it for a hobby. But so does King's Huntington at the headquarters. Rafael Cordero has, I think, over 300 students. So if you want to just train for your leisure, you can. But we have people who come in who just say, "Hey, I want to be a professional fighter," and we say, "Okay, well, here's what you got to do." And if they do it, they're going to be successful, and if they don't, it's going to be a tough road.
Absolutely. I know you're busy, but what's the best way if someone wanted to contact you and get your insight, or maybe let you know that they're going to come down to the gym and they really want to fight, and be under the Kings banner? What's the best social media way to touch base with you?
Social media, as far as wanting to be a fighter, you can message me on Instagram. You can message me on Facebook, but I don't understand how Facebook works a lot of times, because a lot of my inboxes they get sorted out or deleted, or I don't know how to explain it, but they don't allow them through. So I have to go to a certain setting to figure out where they are, and I don't always figure it out. I'm not very good with technology, to be honest with you. So. But Instagram, so far, I have a good handle on. So if you message me on Instagram about fighting, I'll do my best to help out.
Sounds good. Really appreciate that. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here on MMA Power Hour. Beneil, I've been a big fan for a while, and it's a pleasure to chat with you, get to know you. It looks like you're a guy that really has a good head on his shoulders and is a humble, respectful person. And I'll be cheering for you even more strongly now, my friend, and can't wait to see you go get the W against Drakkar Klose July 27th in the UFC, and that will be in Sacramento, man. So thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Appreciate it, brother. You take care.
You too. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Beneil Dariush. What a good guy. Really appreciate him. And this is just such an exciting fighter. 15 fights in 5 years in the UFC. That is a lot. I mean, I think UFC sees guys like this and says, I want to see him fight again. And then they see him fight again, and then they say, I want to see this guy fight again. Because there's a lot of people that want these spots. And he's had a few losses, but he wins a lot more than he loses. I think he's winning at about an 80% clip, which is amazing in the UFC. And so the bottom line is, it's unusual that, first of all, it seems like they're letting in guys that are older and older nowadays. Guys are getting later starts, so at 25 getting into the UFC is just a perfect time. And then for him to be doing so well and having fought so many people and have such great wins and such great fights, he's in a really good position. It seems like a really smart guy, and a guy that really has a good head on his shoulders and a good attitude, don't you think?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm excited to watch more of his fights coming up here, especially the one coming up in Sacramento. great card as well. We'll talk about that one a little bit more next week, but super stoked to have our next guest. Do we know who our next guests are coming up? Or
for next week, we don't. We're in talks with several really good fighters, but I don't know now, so I don't want to throw it out without
definitely.
But we will on social media the next few days.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick before we check on out for the night, I want to go ahead and say thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much for the likes, comments, and shares. I was able to go check that out here while Colin was speaking with Benil, and while you're still with us, make sure to go on over to crosstrainmmafighter.com, check out the t-shirts there, order one, hit us up for an MMA Power Hour t-shirt provided by Crosstrain MMA Fighter. Also go on over to digisouth.co if you're looking for social media marketing. Those of you fighters looking to build up your own presence and hopefully get those contracts because of your presence, which has a big deal with the UFC and Bellator. When you have that presence, they love it. It just brings more value to the table. We love to help guys like you out, and I say we because I was so excited once they started helping us out and showed us what they were able to do. I was able to become part of the team, partner up with them. I invested in them and doing great things, so we can help you out there. Also, get on over to warfighterhemp.com if you're looking for any CBD products and also want to support a good cause. You can get 50% off by putting in at checkout in the discount code CBD MMA, or is it MMA CBD? It's going across the screen here in a moment. You'll be able to see it. It's MMA CBD.
CBD, yep.
And it's some of the best CBD products. You can get THC-free products. That's a huge thing, I know, for fighters, not just fighters, but also people in the military. And a lot of you that are still having to do the drug testing for work, it's pretty normal. So, yeah, they do have the THC products, which is excellent for being able to take care of things. The CBD products do not need THC to do their job a majority of the time. There's a couple things I think it's good for, but yeah.
Yep.
I want to thank you all so much. Thank you, Colin, for another great episode. We will be back next week. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to you, Colin. Everybody else, I am out for the night. I'm handing over the mic to Colin for the rest of the few minutes.
Thank you so much, California Congressman Dr. Adam Roorda. I really appreciate that, one day at least, right? I wanted to thank our guests in order of appearance, Jillian Robertson. Big fight coming up, training out of ATT. Thank you so much to the Savage, Jillian Robertson. Really appreciate you coming back. And to the amazing Benil Dariush for joining us for the first time. Thank you so much, brother. Really, really appreciate it. Big respect and a big fan of both of the aforementioned fighters. We'll be announcing our guests in the next few days on social media for next week and putting up a banner. Anyway, hit me up. Wanted to thank you guys so much. Take care of yourself. Look out for your friends, coworkers, your neighbors, your pets especially, and be that guy, be that girl. Spread the love in a positive way. It'll come back to you tenfold. For Dr. Adam Roorda and our entire staff of the MMA Power Hour, this is Colin Crandall, and I'm tapping out.